It is a beautiful day outside and a beautiful day right here in the atrium of the Detroit Symphony Orchestra's Orchestra Hall in Midtown Detroit. I am your host, Lee Thomas. Thank you for joining me, and thank the guests for joining me as well. This is the big send-off for the DSO, the last concert before they leave for their tour of China and Japan, and today is our final webcast, so thank you very much for joining us. Now, we'll be joined by several representatives of sponsors of today's tour. With me right now, Melissa Smith from Denso International America and Takashi Omitsu of Aishin Seiki, another auto supplier as well. Welcome to DSO Live to both of you. And they're getting ready to make some beautiful music inside, so have some beautiful conversation outside. Welcome, welcome. My first question is, what brought you to supporting your company and you supporting what the Detroit Symphony Orchestra stands for and is? Melissa.
Supporting arts and culture is really important to Denso. As a company, we think it just really makes a better community. And so doing something like helping bring the DSO to not just our country here, but where our company is headquartered in Japan, just seemed like a perfect opportunity to bridge that gap in the cultures.
Yeah, from company to music, it seems like business is a beautiful harmony here in Detroit when it comes to reaching out to different countries and making sure we have representatives. What brought your company to the table?
Well, actually, we haven't engaged too many years, but just started like 2 years ago. Not like Denso has been long history of engaging with DSO, but with the Aishin, it is only 2 years. That's because some Japanese young orchestra team came here to collaborate with the DSO about 2 years ago. And we engaged a lot with the people here, players, and now that reminds me that we should do more about the culture exchange with the people, players, and all the staff. You know, that was a wonderful, wonderful experience. I'd like to extend this more to Aishin and its group companies.
Well, we'd love to see even more, and we'd love to talk more about it, but we have to take a small break. But you guys stick with us. We'll be right back with a lot more stories about the Detroit Symphony Orchestra's Asian tour.
I could still remember very much the children's concerts I went to. I went to Detroit Public Schools. I was part of a Detroit family for 3 generations. And even as young children, we were taken to hear concerts. And it was the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. I think culture is a really important part of our community, of growing up, of personal individual growth. That's one of the reasons why Harold and I decided to do this program.
The Penny and Harold Blumenstein Future Audiences Fund makes it possible for Detroit students to attend for $1 a ticket. Kids who have never had the chance to hear the Detroit Symphony live in Orchestra Hall are doing that.
It's really difficult when you're a Detroit Public School student today to know what opportunities are out there.
We try to treat this educational concert as one very important access point that will stay with them throughout their careers as students, into being young professionals, and further on into adulthood.
By making it affordable for them, they can have a true opportunity of learning, of being exposed to a whole other environment. You never know what's going to be something that they will then pursue.
We see the excitement, we see the things that they picked up from the program, the facts that they're rattling off, the activities that we had them do that they're still doing, and it opens that window a little bit, and they get curious, and they realize how much they can learn from it, and that's attainable by people that they've met and that they have in their own home city, and that it's not just some foreign thing. It helps them build the kind of life they want.
As much as Harold and I can do, there's a lot more that can be done. We can do so much more as a group than we can as individuals. So it's been very, very important to me to pass on traditions that my parents gave to me and that I would give to them.
Thank you so much, Penny and Harold, for all that you do. But we all love the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, and so do Barbara Frankel and John Bracey. They are here now to talk about their love and their interest. And what got you involved in wanting to make sure the DSO achieved its goals?
Well, money always helps. They need a lot to go to
They do.
Japan and China. I've been with the symphony. Well, people in other states aren't going to understand a Ford Auditorium way back when.
Oh, yeah.
And so now I'm a board emeritus. I've been here long enough.
Congratulations.
And my daughter said, "Can you still talk, Mother?" And I said, "Yes, I can. I just can't vote." I love the symphony. We've traveled with them a number of times. We've been to Toronto, Florida a couple of times, New York. It was our chance to get to know them, and that's important for my husband and I.
Yeah,
We wanted to know and call them by name.
All right. John, talk about your interest and what got you so involved with the orchestra.
Well, certainly. Well, they're a grantee, they're a client, so that makes me interested. Number one. Besides just loving the DSO, I'm the executive director for the State of Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs. So this trip, which I'm assuming that's what you're implying.
Absolutely.
But this trip is vitally important to, I think, the interest of the state and the citizens of Michigan. And what better ambassador than maybe, my opinion, the best orchestra in the nation.
Yeah,
I agree
without
with
a
that.
doubt, stacks up with orchestras around the world. And to that end, talk about how important it is for, we only have 30 seconds left, how important it is for people to realize that the orchestra exists here in Detroit.
Well, I think it's wonderful the way they go out into the community. This makes such a difference in people who normally would not come downtown. Now that Detroit is so great, we're getting more of an influx. Plus, people are getting used to them being out in the suburbs.
Yeah, and around the world.
Yeah.
You know, Lee, besides just bringing some joy to your life, I don't think that it's always understood around the state how vitally important the DSO is to our image nationwide. And I'm not certain that they understand the sort of value added that an organization like the DSO has to our citizens.
Well, they can get a prime example right now as you guys get ready to enjoy some world-class music from your Detroit Symphony Orchestra. So thank you very much for joining us. And we'll be right back after a word from the DSO replay. We'll be back. And we're back with Jerry Hsu and Jonathan Hughes. To you gentlemen, welcome. And it's always exciting to me right before the concert because everybody's milling around. They're preparing for a fantastic show. What brought you, your initial interest and everything that you represent, what brought you to the DSO?
I'm very involved with the community, and I'm the president of Michigan U.S.-China Exchange Center. So our passion is during the exchange between Michigan and China. And DSO is our gem. And of course, the former president of Paul Hoger and the current president Ann Parson reached out to me for help.
Yeah.
So help them reach awareness, reach a fund for our trip to China, which is very exciting.
And Jonathan, what brought you to the table?
Well, we came here about 5 years ago with Shinola. One of our big missions here in Detroit is supporting education and the arts. When we heard about the Asia trip, we felt that just dovetailed perfectly into what we're doing and what we're trying to do in supporting the city and everything around it. So,
yeah, we love what Shinola does. We love what everyone does. And let's talk about what does this mean to the Chinese audience to have the Detroit Symphony Orchestra come to the country?
Detroit is the town, is the place for automotive. That's the perception.
Yeah.
And they realize we have the top level symphony in the world. And it means so much for the people to understand that Detroit not only automotive, but also culture, music. So I'd be excited to see this happen in China when the audience see, wow, this is from Detroit. That's I like to see.
And Shinola is global as well. I'm sure that your products are going over there on someone's wrist at the very least, but at the most, you guys probably sell over there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We just opened up in Isaton in Japan, and so it's a global outreach from business perspectives, now from a cultural perspective. So we love it. We love the town.
You guys play instruments when you were younger?
I played the piano.
You?
I didn't. My son did, but I didn't.
I didn't either. So who do you watch when you're watching the orchestra? Piano?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Who do you watch?
I saw the move of the violin.
I love it. I love the movement of all of it. So to both of you, Jerry, Jonathan, thank you very much. Now, thanks for being here. You guys, please enjoy the concert. Here's a short preview of that Asian tour, and we'll be right back. Yeah, there you go. Just like 5 to 7 inches from you, kind of right under your chin. There you go.
Okay, good.
Oh, yeah, we're back. Hey, guys, that was a quick little segment. I'm here with Brian Gao. He is with the Detroit Chinese Business Association. And let's talk about what does this mean, a kind of trip to China? What does that mean when it comes to business relationships?
Well, every business transaction starts with a good understanding. And the good understanding is the culture exchange. That is, we have our Detroit Chinese Business Association is responsible, and we wanted to get a good first understanding of both cultures. And we are supporting this particular, this particular event is because the culture exchange is the understanding for all of the people that is who doesn't have a good understanding of Detroit.
Like everything that Detroit has to offer, right? Most people just think cars, but a world-class orchestra is something very different. How important is music to a Chinese audience?
Well, I started as a kid learning piano.
For
lack of a talent, I didn't pursue that path. But so for many kids, music is a first language, almost to a universal communication.
Yeah. Now talk about some of the businesses that are part of your association.
Well, for example, we have Key Safety, recently been on the news quite often, purchase of Takata. We have Yanfeng Automotive Interior System. We have Nextier, which is also Chinese-owned business. So all these companies are big supporter of us, which also supports the community. Events such like this is supported by them as well.
How big is symphony music in China?
Oh, I would say most kids in the cities nowadays is either taking a part of an instrument, or at least get exposure to it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing, man.
It is absolutely. You know, looking back, if I had
I said the same thing. I probably would have played the oboe, but I started with the piano and then went to sports. So I wish I would have stuck with it myself. When you listen to the orchestra, what do you look for? I go to the violins, then I go to the horns. So what do you look for when you're watching the show?
Piano still one. Then also I think I like the beat.
Oh, really?
So I follow the beat a little bit, yeah.
That's nice. That's nice. Well, you enjoy yourself, and thank you for your support of the Detroit Symphony Orchestra and your organizations. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. We really appreciate it. All right. So that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. You need to enjoy the concert right now, as we will. And we'll give you now to Orchestra Hall for Leonard Slatkin and your Detroit Symphony Orchestra. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Lee Thomas.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome DSO Chairman Mark Davidoff and President and CEO Ann Parsons.
Good afternoon. This is our time. And as an institution and as a city and a state, it's our time to tell our story around the world. The rising of Detroit and the rising of Michigan, after all we've been through together, it's time to find the right ambassadors to send our message across the world. And there's no finer ambassadors than the amazing musicians behind me, Detroit Symphony Orchestra. We have many honored guests with us tonight, but I want to highlight two very important dignitaries that are with us today. The Consul General of Japan, Mitsuhiro Wada. And the Acting Consul General of China, Jun Liu. Before I turn the mic over to our amazing CEO, Ann Parsons, you might want to ask yourself, why, after a 30-plus week season, after our gala, after hosting the League of American Orchestras conference here in Detroit, after playing in front of tens of thousands of people over the past 10 days at Greenfield Village and the Fort House, why does this orchestra, Leonard Slatkin and Ann and her team, want to travel across the world to do what we need done? Because they have passion of purpose. They believe in what we're doing, and they are ready to take that message across the world. With that, I'd like to ask you your indulgence. The amount of energy and time and effort that's gone into planning this trip is one set of work, but the amount of work that this organization is going to undertake in the next few weeks is incredible. And so, in the tradition of wishing people good as they travel, I would ask you to join me in wishing the orchestra and the entire team a bon voyage. So on three. So on three, if you can join me. 1, 2, 3. Bon voyage!
Thank you, Mark. So I think many of you know that tours are huge works of love and incredible passion, actually, as well as dedication. And the first thank you that I want to make is to the board of directors of the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. We didn't plan this little exchange, but I will tell you that 3 years ago, when this was a vision that Leonard and I had hoped we could carry out at this time in our tenures with this orchestra, we went to the board and we told them what it would cost, we told them where we wanted to go, and we told them why we wanted to go there. And they didn't laugh the way you all did. They were very serious, and they asked great questions, and with my incredible team on the professional staff and with our partners, we began to get to work and put the numbers together. And the board voted on the concept of a break-even tour outside of our annual fund, outside of the League of American Orchestras Conference, outside of the gala that we successfully raised $1 million for. And we had a pledge from this board of faith. And I am pleased to announce today, thanks to the names I'm about to read to you, that we have raised all the money to the dollar that we need to have a break-even tour going to Asia this week. And so my request for indulgence is I am going to read every name of every organization and individual who participated in financial support of this tour, starting with the William Davidson Foundation that gave us the seed money, I think nearly 3 years ago. Bill Davidson believed in the ambassadorial role of an orchestra, particularly the DSO and Detroit's need to get the word out. And so the Davidson Foundation, as our lead sponsor, very big thank yous, and we look forward to having Ralph Gerson and Erica with us on the tour in Japan. I think that's appropriate. Yes. I will put together our two lead auto sponsors, and as I said before, the concert and the reception, from automobiles to pizzas to watches. We have a very eclectic made in Detroit, made from Detroit group. But the Ford Motor Company Fund was the very next sponsor that came in very early and said this is terribly important. And they have operations in Chongqing with a partner, a venture partner. And so we will be spending a lot of time with them there. And also for General Motors, we have a day of excitement and interaction in Wuhan. And then of course in Shanghai, we will all come together. So those are our two leadership level and major support sponsors, and let's give them a round of applause. The Princeton Management and Lamont Street Partners Group, the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs, known to us as MCACA, and also the Michigan Economic Development Corps, known to us as the MEDC. Let's thank them for their leadership support as well. In our friend category, we have Little Caesars. We're so excited that pizzas will be served in Shanghai, in China, I think Shanghai and one other city. Of course, our friends at Deloitte, thank you, Mark. Toyota, we go to Toyota City where we opened their concert hall, and we're so pleased to be going back to that town and playing in that concert hall again. The Lear Corporation and the Eugene and Marcia Applebaum Family Foundation. Two slides to go. We have our great ambassadors of Detroit, Shinola, and their investment in the world coming straight out of Detroit is amazing, and they are asking us to carry their brand, which we will proudly do, to Japan, and we thank them for their incredible support. As does Delta. Delta comes from this city. They are also proud to be from Detroit, and they are our official airline of this tour. The Aishin Group gave us inspiration and guidance and fellowship from the very beginning, and we appreciate that. With Denso, also Oakland County of Michigan, and Delphi. All of you, thank you so much for your friend support. And this community is amazing. Individuals step up and say this matters, and many individuals and organizations that raised their own money to exist and to do great work supported this tour, and I will list them now. The Detroit Chinese Business Association, Japan Business Society of Detroit, the Michigan China Innovation Center, the Michigan State University, the College of Music, Barbara Frankel and Ron Michalik, Paul Zlotov, Steve Miller, all people who have given us support in order to make this a break-even operation. And we thank you, all of you, for that support. And now, while I am out on the stage at Greenfield Village in the Henry Ford, I take a selfie, I turn around, I take another selfie. I'm not going to do that now, but we do leverage our social media activation here at the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. So please, all of you, go to #DSOAsia2017 throughout the week, and you will be the 3 weeks, what am I saying? It's not 1 week. We will be gone the rest of this month. So thank you for engaging with us in social media, watching the pictures that our orchestra will be posting, and also communicating back with them. Thanks so much for being here for this fabulous send-off. You're going to hear a wonderful cross-section, or just maybe even a tip of the iceberg of the repertoire that we're going to be playing on tour, and you'll hear from Leonard towards the end of the concert around the artistic message of the tour. Thank you all so much. We'll see you after we get back.
I first started going to the symphony through the coffee concert series. And when I met Bob he had tickets to the pop series.
They were very much in love. They were here, so happy, and I went over to them and introduced myself. That was the beginning of a really wonderful relationship.
Music and art are the heart and soul of a city. This is the reason why Bob and I believed so strongly in supporting the arts. As a child growing up in Metro Detroit, our family was surrounded by music. The Grinnells were my mother's family. They were known throughout the country for designing and manufacturing pianos. This treasured family history is why endowing the Guest Pianist Fund has such a special significance.
Having an endowment fund for outstanding solo work on the piano is a great way to spotlight something that's crucial to our mission, which is performing the great repertoire that exists for orchestra and instruments like the piano.
It's been such a delight for me to share this experience with family and friends. We've been able to enjoy the music together and meet with the artist afterwards, and it's an extraordinary experience for all of us.
Great connections get made, relationships are built when funds like this are established.
For me, it is a privilege to help provide a lasting legacy for future generations.
Welcome back to DSO Live. It is an intermission for the show just before their Asian tour, and what a spectacular, I just love, I'll call her the lady in red violinist. She was just not only beautiful music, a beautiful woman at the same time. But obviously I'm not sitting here alone, guys. I'm sitting next to Todd Nissen. He's with Ford, Cynthia Shaw, the William Davidson Foundation. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Did you enjoy what you heard?
Oh yeah, I thought it was great. It was like a violin concerto meets meets an old-fashioned American Western.
Yeah, yeah.
That was the second one, and the first one was really spectacular too. I think we were both.
And they had
amazed.
some sounds in there that I hadn't traditionally heard, so I'm looking around going, what is that? Where is that coming from? I love it.
Well, and we had the wonderful pleasure of sitting right next to the composer.
Oh,
so
nice.
it was absolutely thrilling.
Yeah, and yeah, it was great. I mean, watching the percussion and the back and forth was, I don't know how they played it.
Yeah, it's just something about being part of a concert, a live concert. There's nothing like it. So if you haven't made it, you guys got to make it when they come back in October.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about your involvement. Specifically, Ford has been so involved with supporting so much of what Detroit, the fabric of Detroit, so to speak. But specifically when it comes to the orchestra and this Asian tour, why was it important to step up for Ford?
Well, you're correct. We've been a part of the DSO since the mid-1930s when they were doing started their radio broadcast. So we have a long history with them, and it's just such a great extension of their ambassadorship to the rest of the world. And we were thrilled to be a part of this because we have quite a few operations. We have a lot of presence in China. It's a growing vehicle market, and it's great for us to be able to show the world the talent and all the expertise that's here that we can export.
Yeah, I love that because a lot of times, well, most of the time, people define Detroit as the auto industry, and we're absolutely that. But there's so much more culture and art that we have to offer, and I love when we can export it to the world. Now, Cynthia, talk about, I met Mr. Davidson, and rest in peace, but he was such a committed man to the community. Talk about how his foundation continues that commitment.
Well, the foundation is deeply committed to improving the economic and civic and cultural vitality of southeastern Michigan. In particular, Mr. Davidson was a longtime supporter of the DSO, so we're pleased to support this in his honor. He also was a big believer in the importance of cultural exchange, and he thought that the DSO represented the best of Michigan's cultural institutions. So we're thrilled that the residents of these two great countries, China and Japan, are going to experience our orchestra live, just as we're doing today.
What is it like when you know you're exporting something, and you export many products around the world, but when you get to export something that's close to your heart like music, it's a universal language. What does that mean when you get to show the world what Detroit has to offer?
Well, I think what's really impressive about it is a lot of times you hear things about Detroit and you don't realize all that's here and the history that's here and the talents that's here. So what I personally like about it, I play the trumpet. I still try to am a musician.
Good man.
So it's important for me to be able to show other people the stuff that's here.
Yeah.
I mean, so I feel it personally.
Yeah, it's like a point of pride almost, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it is a point of pride. Not almost, it definitely is. And I'll let you have the final answers. When you go into, what's the thing you look forward to most when you come to a concert?
It's pure joy to hear the DSO. I feel that they lift up my spirit and they bring so much beauty to my life.
Yeah.
And I think that they are going to be doing that to all the people they interact with in China and Japan, and we're thrilled about that.
Right.
And I do want to say we wish them Godspeed and a safe trip and
Yeah.
a very rewarding experience.
Yeah, we're all very, it's almost like proud parents as we send them off around the world to make sure that they
That's
represent
right. You
us
can feel
well.
the crowd very much feels that here as well.
Absolutely. All right, so that's just a little bit about the pride we have for the DSO as we get ready to send them off. Coming up in a minute, we'll have a conversation with Charles Greenwell, who will talk about the music that you just heard and the music that you're going to hear in the next segment. That'll be when we come back.
We've both been attending DSO concerts for, I think we figured 50 years. We first started attending on dates, and we've been married 48 years ago. So we've both been DSO enthusiasts for all that time, and we've been supporting the symphony for as long as I can remember, I guess.
One day, Ann Parsons approached me, and she'd mentioned that there was a couple that was interested in endowing my chair, the assistant principal flute chair.
Of course, she's a wonderful player, but she also had a personality that invited people to hear music and to appreciate it, and thought she was a great ambassador for the DSO.
What I had not really expected, but therefore being a real delight, is getting to know her personally and her family, and getting to see sort of what life is like behind the scenes for a professional musician, and to feel like we're a small part of helping to sustain the orchestra.
It does take on a higher meaning for us. We represent these people, and knowing them and who they are, it's a bigger responsibility, but it's also such a great honor.
The DSO is really a jewel in Detroit. We're really privileged to have a superb orchestra and orchestra hall here, and it's well worth preserving and nurturing.
Now I'm spoiled because when I come to host DSO Live, I get to sit next to Charles Greenwell, and he knows so much about the music. It gives me opens my mind up to things that I would not have thought. Real quickly, I want you to talk about the first piece. I did not realize that was the conductor's wife, but such beautiful music.
Yeah, it's terrific. Cindy McTee is a very fine American composer, has quite a reputation. She won the Elaine Lebenbaum Award, which we've been using for several years now for women composers. She won it back in 2009, I think, and it was first performed by Leonard and the orchestra in 2010.
Wow.
And she's written a number of other pieces that they've played, and they're all just immaculately put together and beautifully orchestrated.
How does that happen, all that talent in one house? I'll ask him that question. I'll have
Okay.
to ask him that question. But let's talk about what we're gonna, what we just heard. That's the Violin Concerto by Eric KORNGOLD. And he was a child prodigy?
He was, in the eyes of many, the greatest child prodigy the world of composers has ever known. Greater even than Mozart and Mendelssohn in this regard. Mendelssohn is generally regarded as the great child prodigy, and I mean, he achieved musical maturity in his mid-teens, 16, 17. Korngold achieved his musical maturity when he was around 12, in his early teens.
Wow.
And he just kept writing and writing. By the time he was 20, he had this remarkable body of works and a tremendous reputation in Europe. Yeah.
Now, who did he write the concerto for?
The concerto was written for Jascha Heifetz and first performed by Heifetz in the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra in 1947. And then there were performances right after that in Chicago and New York. And what's interesting about Korngold and his style is that once he came to this country and started writing for films in the 30s, he started using a somewhat different language than he had with his concert works and wrote some of the greatest film scores there ever had been. And he went back and forth to Europe and whatnot, but then when the Second World War broke out, he made his father a promise that he would never write another piece of concert music until Hitler was deposed.
Wow.
That happened in 1945. He started work on this concerto in 1945, and 47, Heifetz gave it its premiere.
Now, what was his middle name and the significance of his middle name?
Well, his name was Erich Wolfgang Korngold,
That sounds
and his
familiar.
father, who, by the way, was the great music critic of his time in Vienna, named him purposely after Mozart. Little did he realize that his son would grow up to be another phenomenal genius.
Well, that before he even grew up at the age of 12.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Indeed.
All right, now, let's talk about what's coming up after intermission. It's Aaron Copland's Third Symphony. When and where did he write it?
He wrote it, for the most part, in a little town in Mexico in 1944, stayed there for a year or more, then came back to this country and finished the symphony at the famous MacDowell Colony in New Hampshire in 1946. And the work was given its world premiere by Serge Koussevitzky and the Boston Symphony Orchestra later that fall. And it went on to achieve the New York Critics Music Circle Award the next year, and generally is very highly regarded as a great American symphony.
You're going in to enjoy the music as soon as we're done here, I assume?
I certainly am. It's a blockbuster of a piece. It's just fabulously orchestrated. And, you know, he uses part of his famous fanfare for the common man in the last movement. And he said he did that because he wanted this symphony to be for the common man.
Very nice, very nice. Charles, always a pleasure to talk with you, man.
And to you,
I really
take care.
appreciate it.
Sure.
All right, you
Have a
open up
good
my
summer.
eyes every time. Have
Thank
a
you.
fantastic summer. I'm going to sneak in too.
Okay.
All right, I want to make sure we are going to be, thanks to Charles, and we hope you enjoy the second half of today's performance for your Detroit Symphony Orchestra and Leonard Slatkin. We are live from Orchestra Hall, is presented by Ford Motor Company Fund, made possible by generous support of the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation. Now, our next webcast will be in the fall, October the 14th. We'll be starting the 2017-2018 season. We'll have pianist Olga Kern and new work by young composer Connor Brown, and of course Beethoven. So have a spectacular summer, and make sure you follow the DSO as they go on this Asian tour, because they're representing Detroit as they bring beautiful music to the world. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Lee Thomas, sitting next to Charles Greenwald. Enjoy the rest of the concert.
And have a great summer.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? And we haven't even started to play loud yet. Well, thank you all for coming and being with us today. This is a sort of send-off concert, constitutes about 1/2 or so of the repertoire we're playing on our tour. We'll be also performing a work by a Japanese composer, Toru Takemitsu. We'll be doing Tchaikovsky's Fourth Symphony, Rhapsody in Blue, Barber Adagio, Candide Overture, and something else, I don't know. But one thing that makes tours very special are what happens after the printed program, the encores. But we're going to be a little bit different here. Normally, an encore is a piece that all of you know, and we decided to play something probably none of you know. And in the case of the first piece, called Flowers Will Bloom, it is indeed a Japanese song. If indeed some of you know it, feel free not to sing with us. And the other one, straight out Americana, is arranged by my father.
Thank you.